Medieval homes had almost no rooms. So where did the entire family actually sleep? If you are listening at night, tell me where you are and what time it is. Welcome to Dreamy Old Stories, where we share slow and gentle stories from history. These stories are made to calm your mind and help you fall asleep. Night settles slowly over a quiet village. The sky has already softened into a dark blue that feels almost gentle. A few thin clouds move slowly across the moon. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then decides the effort is not worth repeating. The air carries the faint smell of wood smoke that has been drifting from chimneys since late afternoon. Inside one small house, the day has ended in the quiet way most days end. The door is closed. The wooden latch rests in place. Wind presses lightly against the walls, but the house is used to that. These walls have listened to many winds over many years. The house does not hurry. It simply stands. From the outside, the building looks simple. Its walls are made from timber and packed earth. The roof slopes downward with a thick layer of thatch that keeps out rain and cold. The windows are small openings, sometimes covered with cloth or wooden shutters. Glass is rare here. Light does not enter easily during the day, and during the night it does not escape easily either. But tonight we are not outside. We are inside the house. Inside, the room is dim but warm. A fire burns quietly in the center of the home. It is not large. It does not need to be. The flames move slowly through a few pieces of wood that were carefully saved for the evening. Sparks lift upward from time to time and disappear into the darkness above. Above the fire, the ceiling is hard to see. Smoke drifts slowly upward and spreads beneath the roof beams before finding its way out through small openings in the thatch. The smoke moves lazily. It has been doing this every night for years, maybe generations. The beams themselves are dark from many winters of smoke. Their surfaces are rough, shaped long ago by tools that left small marks still visible today. The room has only one main space. Medieval homes were rarely divided into many rooms, especially in small villages. One large room served nearly every purpose. Cooking happened here, eating happened here, work happened here, sleeping happened here as well. Life gathered around the fire. The fire was warmth, light, and comfort. Without it, the house would feel very different. Without it, the darkness would settle too heavily in the corners. Near the fire sits a simple wooden stool. It is not perfectly shaped. One leg is slightly shorter than the others, so it leans just a little to one side. The stool has probably been repaired more than once. A small wooden wedge has been pushed into a crack to keep it steady. Nearby stands a table. The table is thick and solid, made from heavy boards. It shows many small marks from knives and tools. Bread has been cut here. Vegetables have been chopped here. Hands have rested on its surface after long hours of work. Sometimes the table also becomes a workspace for small repairs. A farmer might mend a wooden tool handle here. A woman might repair clothing by the firelight. The table does not complain. It simply holds whatever task arrives. Along one wall rests a long wooden bench. Benches are common in medieval homes. They serve many purposes. During meals, they provide seating for the family. During quiet moments, someone might sit there and warm their hands near the fire. At night, the bench can also become a sleeping place. People in medieval homes often slept wherever space allowed. Comfort was not the main concern. Warmth was. The floor beneath everything is made of packed earth. It feels firm underfoot but slightly uneven. Over time, many feet have crossed this floor. Mud from fields has dried here. Water from rain has soaked into the ground and then disappeared. Sometimes fresh straw is spread across the floor to keep the space a little cleaner and warmer. The straw smells faintly sweet. When people walk across it, the sound is soft and quiet. If you pause for a moment and simply listen, the house has its own quiet rhythm. The fire shifts gently. Wood settles with a small crack. Somewhere in the roof, a faint rustle might come from a bird that found shelter there earlier in the evening. Nothing here is hurried. Against another wall stands a large wooden chest. This chest holds many things the household values. Clothing is folded carefully inside. A few small tools might be stored there as well. Perhaps a piece of cloth saved for a future repair. The chest also protects these things from mice and damp air. Its lid is heavy and closes with a dull wooden sound. Generations may have opened and closed this same chest thousands of times. Above the chest hang a few simple hooks. From these hooks hang tools used during the day. A small knife, a wooden ladle for stirring soup over the fire. Sometimes a small bag made of cloth that holds dried herbs or seeds. Nothing here is decorative in the way modern homes might be. Almost every object has a purpose. Yet there is still a quiet beauty in the way everything belongs. The firelight touches the wood walls and makes soft, moving shadows. The shadows stretch across the beams and slowly fade into the darker parts of the room. In one corner sits a large clay pot. This pot has likely been used for cooking many times. Soup, porridge, and stews have slowly simmered inside it. The outside of the pot carries dark marks from years of fire. Next to it lies a wooden spoon worn smooth by many hands. In homes like this, meals were simple but steady. Bread, grains, vegetables, and sometimes meat when fortune allowed. The food cooked slowly over the fire while people spoke quietly about the day. But tonight the house is resting. The fire burns lower now. The shadows grow longer. The stool, the bench, the table, the chest, and the quiet earthen floor all remain in their familiar places. They have seen many evenings like this one, and if you sit quietly for a while longer, the medieval home reveals something simple. It was not grand, it was not spacious, but it held warmth, work, rest, and the slow passing of everyday life. And the night outside continues to deepen, while inside the small house the fire glows softly, patient and calm. The fire continues to glow in the center of the room. Its light is soft and patient. The flames move slowly around the wood as if they have nowhere else to be. From time to time, a small pop comes from the burning logs, and a single spark lifts into the dark air above before quietly fading away. The warmth from the fire spreads gently through the house. It is not the strong heat of a modern stove. It is softer than that. The warmth moves slowly outward, reaching the bench, the table, the chest, and the packed earth floor. Near the walls the air is cooler, but close to the fire the warmth is enough to make the room feel safe and settled. In a medieval home like this, the fire rarely stops burning for long. During the day, someone always tends to it. A small stick is added here. A larger piece of wood is placed there. Ash is pushed aside so that the coals can breathe again. Fire was too important to let disappear completely. Cooked the food. It warmed cold hands. It gave light when the sun was gone. Without the fire, the inside of the house would feel very different. If you look carefully around the room, you begin to notice small details that quietly tell the story of daily life. Above the fire hangs a simple iron hook fixed to a wooden beam. From this hook, a pot can be suspended over the flames. The hook is dark from years of smoke and heat, but it remains strong. It has held cooking pots through many seasons. The pot itself is heavy. When filled with water or grain, it becomes even heavier, and yet the hook holds it without complaint. Over the years, the pot has likely boiled countless meals. Each meal was slow and patient, much like everything else inside the house. Nearby, leaning against the wall, stands a wooden bucket. This bucket once held water carried from a nearby well or stream. The wood of the bucket has darkened with age and use. Its iron bands hold the staves tightly together so that the water stays inside. Carrying water was part of daily life. Someone in the household would walk outside, sometimes many times in a day, filling the bucket and bringing it back into the house. The water was needed for cooking, cleaning, and sometimes simply for washing tired hands. Beside the bucket rests a small broom made from twigs tied together. The broom is simple but useful. Every few days someone sweeps the floor, pushing away dust, bits of straw, and the small remains of everyday life that slowly gather on the ground. Sweeping does not make the floor perfectly clean. The earth floor always keeps some signs of life, but sweeping helps enough to keep the house comfortable. The walls of the home are made from wooden frames filled with woven branches and packed earth. If you touch the surface, it feels firm but slightly rough. During the day, sunlight might find its way through small cracks or gaps. But during the evening, the walls simply hold the warmth inside and keep the wind outside. Sometimes small shelves are built into the walls. On one of these shelves, a few simple objects may rest. A clay bowl, a wooden cup, perhaps a small candle saved for special moments when extra light is needed. Candles were not used carelessly. Wax was valuable, and candles were often saved for times when the firelight alone was not enough. Most evenings, the glow from the hearth provided all the light the household needed. In the darker corners of the room, the shadows remain quiet and still. These corners are not empty. They simply hold objects that are less often used. A bundle of dried herbs might hang there. The herbs slowly release their faint scent into the air. Their leaves were gathered months earlier during warmer weather, and now wait patiently for the moment when they will be added to food or medicine. Nearby might sit a sack of grain. Grain was one of the most important foods in medieval life. The sack rests against the wall, tied carefully at the top so that its contents stay safe from mice. Sometimes a wooden bowl sits nearby for measuring small amounts of grain before cooking. The bowl has likely been used so often that its surface has become smooth and polished by hands and grain rubbing against the wood. If you listen again to the quiet sounds of the house, you might hear something gentle moving above. The roof of the house is made from thick layers of straw thatch tied carefully together. The thatch keeps rain away and traps warmth inside. But it is also home to small visitors. Birds sometimes rest there during the night. Occasionally, a mouse might move quietly through the dry straw. The house accepts these small neighbors without much trouble. In a village like this, people understand that nature and home are rarely far apart. Along one beam hangs a small lantern. The lantern is not lit tonight. It waits quietly, ready for nights when someone must move around the house after the fire grows dim. The glass of the lantern is cloudy from smoke and time. Still, when a candle is placed inside, it spreads a soft light that reaches farther than the open flame of the hearth. The bench near the wall has become warmer now. Earlier in the evening, someone may have sat there, stretching tired legs after a long day in the fields. The bench remembers the shape of many people who rested there. Sometimes children would sit on the bench while listening to the quiet voices of adults talking near the fire. Stories might drift through the room slowly. Stories about past winters, nearby villages, or small events that happened earlier in the day. These conversations were rarely loud. The house itself seemed to encourage softer voices. The wooden beams above, the earthen walls, and the low roof create a feeling that naturally quiets people. Words do not need to travel far in a room like this, and so the house becomes not just a shelter from weather, but a quiet container for everyday life. The fire slowly settles again. A log shifts slightly, sending a small cloud of sparks upward. The sparks glow briefly and then disappear into the smoky darkness above the beams. Outside, the village continues its slow journey into night. Inside, the medieval home remains calm and steady. The table waits for tomorrow's meal. The bucket waits for water. The bench waits for someone to rest again. Nothing here rushes forward. Everything simply remains where it belongs, inside the warm and patient quiet of the house. The fire is quieter now. The wood has burned down into a bed of glowing coals that pulse gently with a soft orange light. The flames are smaller than before, but the warmth still spreads slowly through the room. The house does not mind the growing darkness. It has known this pattern for many years. Evening arrives, the fire settles, and the quiet deepens. The walls, the beams, and the earthen floor seem to relax as the night becomes steady. The objects in the room remain exactly where they have always been. The table stands patiently near the fire, its surface still carrying the small marks of countless meals and quiet tasks. The wooden stool leans slightly as it did earlier, its uneven legs resting on the packed earth floor without complaint. Nearby, the long bench waits quietly against the wall. During the day, it held tired bodies and quiet conversation. Now it simply rests, warmed by the fading heat of the hearth. The wooden chest remains closed. Inside it, folded clothing and small belongings sit safely in the darkness. The lid fits tightly, protecting the contents from damp air and wandering mice. The chest has guarded these simple possessions through many seasons. Above, the dark wooden beams stretch across the ceiling. Smoke moves slowly among them, drifting upward in thin gray ribbons before finding its way out through the roof. Over the years, the beams have grown darker and smoother from this constant movement of smoke and warmth. If you watch closely, the shadows from the coals move slowly along the beams. They shift gently, almost like slow breathing. In the corner, the clay pot rests where it was left earlier in the evening. The pot is empty now, but not for long. Tomorrow it will once again hold water or grain as another meal slowly cooks above the fire. The wooden spoon lies beside it. Its handle has become smooth from years of use, shaped quietly by the hands that held it again and again. Tools like this rarely change. They simply continue doing the small work they were made for. Near the wall, the sack of grain remains tied at the top. It leans slightly to one side, heavy with the food that will slowly disappear day by day. Grain is steady and dependable, just like the house itself. Above the sack, the bundle of dried herbs hangs quietly. The leaves have curled and faded slightly since the summer when they were gathered. Even now they release a faint smell into the warm air, a small reminder of green fields and sunlight far away from this quiet night. The bucket stands empty beside the wall. Tomorrow morning it will be carried outside again to the well or stream. Water will splash softly against its wooden sides before returning here to the house. For now it simply waits. Waiting is something this house understands very well. The roof above, thick with thatch, holds the warmth close to the room. Outside, the night air is cooler, and a gentle breeze moves across the village. The thatch rustles softly now and then, a quiet sound that blends easily with the slow breathing of the fire. Somewhere within the straw, a small movement might be heard. Perhaps a bird settling deeper into its hidden nest. Perhaps a mouse carefully finding its path through the dry stalks. The house allows these small sounds without worry. Life in a medieval village rarely existed in perfect silence. There were always small creatures, shifting winds, distant footsteps, and quiet voices drifting from neighboring homes. Tonight, those distant sounds are faint. A door closes somewhere outside. Footsteps pass briefly along the dirt path before fading away. Inside this small home, the calm remains undisturbed. The coals continue their slow glow. The shadows grow softer. If someone were to sit beside the fire now, they would feel the deep stillness that fills the room. It is the kind of stillness that comes after a long day of work, when the body finally rests and the mind begins to drift. The medieval home was not large, and it was not filled with many possessions, but everything inside it had its place. Every object carried a quiet purpose. The stool, the bench, the table, the chest, the pot, and the bucket all belonged to the slow rhythm of daily life. Nothing here was hurried. Nothing needed to be grand. The house simply held the people who lived within its walls, offering warmth, shelter, and a quiet place to return at the end of the day. And as the fire continues to fade gently into glowing embers, the small medieval home settles deeper into the calm and patient silence of the night, waiting quietly for the slow arrival of morning. Morning arrives slowly in the village. The darkness outside softens little by little. Long before the sun appears above the fields, a faint gray light begins to move across the sky. Inside the small medieval house, this change is almost invisible at first. The fire in the center of the room has nearly gone out. Only a few quiet embers remain beneath a layer of pale ash. Their glow is weak now, but not completely gone. A careful hand could stir them back to life. The room is cooler than it was during the night. Without strong flames, the warmth has faded slightly, and the air feels calm and still. The wooden beams above remain dark and quiet, holding the memory of smoke that rose there only hours earlier. The house wakes gently. Light from the small window opening begins to creep across the earthen floor. It is not bright light. The window is small, and the cloth covering it softens the morning sun even more. Still, it is enough to slowly reveal the familiar shapes inside the room. The table becomes visible first. Its surface catches the dim light and shows the uneven grain of the wood. The knife marks and small scratches look almost like quiet lines drawn by time itself. Next, the bench appears clearly against the wall. It has not moved during the night. It simply waited as it always does. The wood has cooled slightly in the morning air, but it will warm again once the fire returns. The stool near the hearth stands where it was left the evening before. One leg still sits a little shorter than the others. The stool leans slightly, but it remains steady enough for anyone who needs to sit close to the fire. A faint sound comes from outside. Perhaps a rooster greeting the early light. Perhaps a cartwheel moving slowly along the dirt road. The village is beginning its day in the quiet way villages often do. Inside the house, the first movement of the morning usually begins at the hearth. Someone kneels beside the fire pit and gently pushes aside the soft ash with a small stick. Beneath the gray powder, the hidden embers glow faintly red. This is enough. A few thin pieces of dry wood are placed carefully above the embers. For a moment, nothing happens. The room remains quiet. Then, slowly, a small thread of smoke rises. A tiny flame appears, flickers once, and then begins to grow. The fire has returned. As the flames strengthen, the room changes again. The warmth spreads slowly outward, touching the stool, the bench, and the table once more. Morning inside a medieval home often begins with this quiet ritual of rebuilding the fire. It happens almost without thought. The hands know exactly what to do. The rhythm of the movement has been learned over many years. Soon the clay cooking pot is placed over the flames. Water from the wooden bucket is poured inside. The sound of the water touching the pot is soft but clear. As the fire grows stronger, the water begins its slow journey toward warmth. While the pot rests above the fire, other small tasks begin around the room. The broom made of twigs is lifted from its place near the wall. Someone sweeps gently across the earthen floor, moving aside bits of straw and dust that gathered during the night. The sweeping sound is quiet and steady. The straw shifts across the ground, and the floor once again feels tidy enough for the day ahead. After sweeping, the broom returns to its resting place. Nothing in the room feels rushed. The chest against the wall is opened slowly. Its heavy lid lifts with a low wooden sound. Inside, folded clothing waits quietly. Clothing in medieval homes is simple but carefully cared for. A tunic, perhaps slightly worn at the sleeves, is lifted out. Wool fabric feels warm even in the cool morning air. After being worn, the lid of the chest closes again with a dull but familiar sound. Near the wall, the bucket is lifted and carried toward the door. The door itself is thick and made of strong wooden boards. When opened, it allows a pale morning light to spill into the room. Fresh air follows it inside, cool and clean. Outside, the village is slowly waking. But the inside of the house remains calm. The pot above the fire begins to whisper softly as the water warms. Small bubbles appear along the bottom of the clay surface. Soon grain will be added to the pot to create a simple morning porridge. Meals in homes like this are rarely complicated, but they are steady and filling. The wooden spoon rests nearby, waiting to stir the pot when the time comes. Above the fire, the smoke begins its familiar slow journey upward. It drifts toward the dark beams, just as it did the night before. The beams accept it without complaint. The smell of wood smoke fills the room again. It mixes with the faint scent of dried herbs hanging in the corner and the warm, earthy smell of the floor. These smells are part of the house itself. Over time, they settle into the wood, the straw, and the walls until the entire home carries a quiet scent of fire, grain, and earth. Along the wall, the small shelf holds its simple collection of bowls and cups. One wooden bowl is lifted and placed on the table. The bowl has been used many times before. Its surface has become smooth from years of food and careful washing. Beside it, another bowl joins it on the table. Soon they will hold warm porridge from the pot over the fire. The bench waits nearby, ready for the small morning meal. In homes like this, meals are often quiet moments. There is no hurry to speak loudly or move quickly. The day ahead will already bring enough work. For now, the house remains a quiet shelter. The fire grows stronger. The water in the pot begins to steam softly, and the early morning light continues to spread slowly across the small medieval home, revealing once again the simple, steady world inside its walls. The pot above the fire begins to move gently. Small bubbles rise through the warming water, touching the surface and disappearing with quiet little sounds. The clay pot has done this many times before. It knows the slow rhythm of cooking over an open hearth. A handful of grain is taken from the sack near the wall. The sack rustles softly as it is opened. Grain pours into a wooden bowl with a dry whispering sound. The bowl is tipped carefully, and the grain slides into the pot. Soon the wooden spoon begins to stir. The spoon moves slowly through the thickening porridge. The motion is calm and patient, the same circular movement repeated again and again. Nothing here needs to be hurried. The smell of warm grain begins to fill the room. It mixes with the scent of wood smoke and the faint herbal smell drifting from the dried plants hanging in the corner. Together, these quiet smells create something familiar and comforting. Morning meals in medieval homes are simple. The porridge is ladled into wooden bowls resting on the table. The bowls feel warm when held in both hands. Steam rises slowly from the surface. The bench beside the wall receives quiet company. Someone sits there, perhaps leaning slightly forward while eating. Another person might rest on the stool near the fire, enjoying the extra warmth while holding a bowl close to the chest. There is rarely much talking during the first meal of the day. People are still waking. Their thoughts move slowly, just like the fire and the smoke above it. The spoon touches the bowl with small soft sounds. Outside, the village continues to stretch itself awake. A cart rolls somewhere along the dirt path. A rooster calls again from a nearby yard. The sounds drift through the open door and settle quietly into the room before fading away. After the meal, the bowls are not washed in the modern way. Water is too valuable to use carelessly. Instead, the bowls are wiped clean with cloth or straw. Sometimes they are simply rinsed lightly with a small amount of water from the bucket. The bowls return to their place on the shelf. The wooden spoon rests again beside the hearth, its work finished for now. The pot is moved slightly away from the strongest flames so the remaining porridge does not burn. Later in the day, it may be warmed again, or perhaps new food will be added to the same pot. In homes like this, cooking tools rarely stay idle for long. As the morning grows brighter, more details of the house slowly reveal themselves. The sunlight that enters through the small window reaches a little farther across the floor. It touches the straw scattered lightly over the earth and creates soft golden patches across the ground. Dust particles float quietly in the beam of light. They move slowly, drifting through the warm air like tiny travelers with no particular destination. Along the wall, a simple wooden rack holds a few tools used during daily work. A small knife rests there, its blade dull from many sharpenings. A pair of shears used for cutting cloth hangs beside it. Each tool has a place where it returns after use. Nothing in the house is arranged for beauty alone. Everything is placed where it will be useful again later. The chest near the wall remains closed now. Inside it, clothing waits for the colder hours of evening or the cooler days of winter. Wool garments folded inside help keep warmth close to the body when the seasons change. Above the chest, the hanging herbs sway slightly in the gentle air moving through the doorway. The door remains open for now. Fresh morning air moves slowly through the room, carrying with it the smells of damp soil, grass, and distant animals. Outside, the fields are beginning another day of work. Inside the house, the morning tasks continue quietly. A cloth is taken from the shelf and used to wipe the table. Crumbs from the bread eaten earlier are brushed away. The table returns to its simple, patient stillness. The broom of twigs is lifted again. A few slow strokes across the floor push aside loose straw and dust that the early activity disturbed. The sound of sweeping is soft but steady. The broom returns to the wall once more. Near the hearth, a small pile of firewood waits beside the wall. The pieces are uneven in size. Some are thick and heavy, others thin and dry. Each piece will find its moment in the fire at the right time. One small log is added to the flames now. The fire answers with a quiet crack as the wood begins to warm. Smoke curls upward again, following the familiar path toward the beams and the thatched roof above. The warmth grows slightly stronger. This warmth spreads through the house slowly, touching the bench and the stool and the packed earth floor beneath everything. The house seems to breathe with the fire. When the flames grow stronger, the room feels alive and warm. When the fire quiets, the house settles into a cooler calm. Near the doorway, the bucket returns once more, filled with fresh water from outside. Small drops slide down its wooden sides and fall onto the floor before disappearing into the earth. The bucket is placed beside the wall where it belongs. Everything in the house moves through this quiet cycle of use and rest. Tools are lifted and returned. The fire grows and softens. Food is prepared and eaten. The house does not change quickly. Its walls remain steady. Its beams hold their silent watch above the room. The floor accepts every footstep without complaint. And as the morning light continues to grow stronger outside, the medieval home remains what it has always been. A simple place where daily life moves slowly, guided by warmth, routine, and the quiet presence of the fire at its center. The morning continues quietly inside the house. The fire in the hearth burns a little stronger now, and the warmth spreads slowly through the room once again. The small log added earlier has settled into the flames, sending a steady heat outward. The clay pot still rests nearby. A small amount of porridge remains inside, kept warm for later in the day. Nothing is wasted in a house like this. Even the smallest portion of food has value and purpose. The wooden spoon lies beside the hearth where it was placed after breakfast. Its handle points slightly toward the fire, and the smooth surface reflects a faint glow from the coals. It will be lifted again later, just as it has been many times before. Near the wall, the bowls returned to the shelf sit quietly in a neat line. Their wooden surfaces carry the marks of many meals. Tiny scratches run across them, small reminders of years of use. Yet they remain strong and dependable. The table now rests empty again. Only the soft grain of the wood is visible in the growing daylight. Earlier it held the warmth of breakfast bowls. Now it waits patiently for whatever task may come next. The bench remains beside the wall. Morning light reaches it more clearly now through the small window opening. The sunlight rests across the seat in a narrow strip, warming the wood slightly. The stool near the hearth has not moved. Its uneven leg still leans just a little into the packed earth floor. Over time, the floor has shaped itself gently around the stool's feet. This is how things change in a medieval home. Not through sudden movement, but through slow, quiet adjustments that happen over many seasons. The door remains partly open. Through the doorway, sounds from the village drift in and out. Voices pass by somewhere outside. A distant animal calls from a nearby yard. The quiet rhythm of village life slowly grows stronger as the morning advances. Inside the house, the air carries several gentle smells. There is the steady scent of wood smoke rising from the hearth. There is the warm smell of cooked grain from the pot. And beneath both of these rests the deep earthy smell of the floor and walls. Together they create a familiar atmosphere that rarely changes. For the people who live here, this smell is simply the smell of home. The herbs hanging in the corner sway slightly again as a small breeze moves through the open door. Their dry leaves rustle together softly. Months ago, these plants were gathered from nearby fields and forests. Now they wait patiently until the moment when a few leaves might be added to food or steeped in hot water. Above the room, the dark beams stretch quietly from wall to wall. In the growing daylight, their rough surfaces become easier to see. Small cracks and marks left by tools long ago remain in the wood. Smoke from many evenings has darkened them deeply, yet they remain strong, holding the roof above without any sign of weakness. The thatched roof beyond them keeps the outside world at a gentle distance. Wind passes across the straw without disturbing the calm inside the house. Rain, when it comes, will fall against the thick thatch and slowly run down its surface. For now the roof rests quietly under the brightening sky. Near the wall, the sack of grain leans in its usual place. The knot at the top remains tightly tied. Each day a small portion will be taken from it, and slowly the sack will grow lighter. But it will not empty quickly. Careful use ensures that the grain lasts through many days and weeks. Beside it, the bucket of fresh water stands still. The surface of the water inside reflects a faint shimmer of light coming through the doorway. Occasionally, a small ripple moves across it when someone passes nearby. The bucket waits patiently for the next task. Water may be needed for cooking again later. It may be used for washing hands after work. In a house like this, water always finds a purpose. The broom remains leaning against the wall where it was left after sweeping. Its bundle of twigs fans slightly at the bottom from years of use. It will be lifted again before long, repeating the quiet routine of keeping the floor tidy. These objects do not change their places very often. Their stillness helps the house feel steady and familiar. If someone were to step outside for a moment and then return, the room would look almost exactly the same. The fire would still glow. The table would still wait near the hearth. The chest would still guard its contents along the wall. This quiet sameness is part of what makes the house feel safe. Day after day, the same small movements happen here. The fire is built. Food is cooked. Tools are used and returned. And the room continues to hold these simple routines without complaint. Outside, the village becomes busier as the sun climbs higher. But inside the medieval home, the pace remains slow and gentle. The walls keep their calm silence. The beams hold their quiet watch above. And at the center of it all, the hearth continues its steady glow, patiently warming the small room where another ordinary day has begun. The morning light continues to grow stronger outside the small house. Inside, the change happens slowly. Sunlight enters through the narrow window and the open doorway, spreading gently across the packed earth floor. The light moves in a quiet line across the room, touching the table first, then the bench beside the wall. Dust floats softly through the bright beam. Each tiny particle drifts without hurry, rising and falling in the warm air that moves through the house. These small movements are easy to miss unless someone pauses long enough to notice them. The fire in the hearth continues its steady work. The flames are no longer small morning sparks. They burn with a comfortable strength now, warming the room in a slow and patient way. The wood crackles from time to time, sending brief whispers of sound through the quiet space. A thicker piece of firewood has been added to the hearth. The log rests partly in the flames and partly outside them. Its outer surface darkens slowly as the heat begins to reach deeper into the wood. The clay pot still sits nearby. Earlier it held the morning porridge, and now it waits quietly for the next use. Cooking in a medieval home rarely happens only once each day. Food often warms slowly over the fire for hours. Sometimes vegetables or grains are added little by little as the day moves forward. This slow cooking fills the room with gentle smells that change over time. A pot might begin the morning with simple grain and end the evening with a thick stew made from whatever food is available. Near the hearth, the wooden spoon remains where it was left. Its handle leans slightly against the edge of the fireplace stones. The spoon looks simple, but it has stirred thousands of meals in this same room. Objects like this often stay with a household for many years. When tools last this long, they begin to feel almost like quiet companions to the people who use them. The table near the fire has begun to receive more light. The sunlight shows the uneven lines in the wood more clearly now. These lines tell the story of the tree from which the table was made long ago. Across the surface, small marks remain from many different tasks. Bread has been cut here. Vegetables have been chopped here. Small repairs to tools and clothing have been done here as well. Sometimes the table also becomes a place for quiet conversation. People lean on it while speaking in calm voices about the fields, the weather, or small happenings in the village. But during this moment, the table stands empty again. The bench beside the wall still holds a narrow band of sunlight across its surface. The wood feels warmer there than the shaded part of the seat. If someone were to sit down now, they might notice the difference without really thinking about it. The stool near the hearth remains slightly tilted. Its uneven leg presses gently into the earth floor, just as it always has. Over time, the ground beneath it has shaped itself around the stool's feet. This is how furniture and floor slowly grow familiar with each other. The chest against the wall sits quietly as well. Its heavy lid has remained closed since morning. Inside, the folded clothing and small belongings rest in the dim darkness. Chests like this are important in medieval homes. They protect what little the household owns. Clothing, small tools, cloth, and sometimes a few precious items all find their place inside. The chest itself is strong and simple. Its wooden boards are thick. Iron nails hold the corners firmly together. The hinges on the back allow the lid to open and close again and again through many years. Above the chest, the dried herbs still hang in their bundle. The morning air drifting through the doorway causes them to sway just slightly. Their leaves brush together with the faintest rustling sound. Their scent remains gentle but steady. Even when the herbs are not being used, they quietly share their smell with the room. Near the wall, the sack of grain rests in its familiar place. Its surface looks a little softer now where small amounts have been taken from it during recent days. Yet the sack still holds plenty of grain for the meals ahead. The wooden bucket nearby holds fresh water brought earlier in the morning. Light from the doorway touches the water's surface, creating a soft reflection that moves slowly when the air shifts. If someone walks past, the water trembles gently before becoming still again. Along the wall, the small shelf holds its collection of bowls and cups. These simple wooden vessels wait quietly for the next meal. Their surfaces have grown smooth from years of use and careful cleaning. Nothing about them is decorated or fancy, yet they serve their purpose perfectly. Above the room, the dark beams remain strong and silent. In the brighter daylight, their shapes become clearer. Some beams show small curves where the wood once followed the shape of the tree. Others hold deep marks from the tools that shaped them long ago. The beams carry the weight of the roof without any complaint. Above them, the thick thatch of the roof keeps the house sheltered from wind and rain. At this hour, the thatch rests peacefully under the rising sun. Now and then a faint sound travels through it. Perhaps a small bird shifting in the straw. Perhaps the quiet movement of wind brushing across the roof. These sounds belong naturally to a house like this. The medieval home does not separate itself completely from the world outside. Instead, it lives gently alongside it. The door remains partly open, allowing fresh air to pass slowly through the room. Outside, the day continues to grow brighter, but inside the house the pace remains calm and steady. The fire glows at the center. The table waits quietly, and the small medieval home holds its familiar stillness as another ordinary morning slowly unfolds. The daylight now fills more of the room. The narrow beam of sunlight that first entered through the window has grown wider. It stretches across the packed earth floor and reaches the opposite wall. The light is soft and pale, but it is enough to gently brighten the inside of the house. The fire continues to burn in the hearth. The thick log added earlier has begun to break along one side as the heat slowly works its way through the wood. A quiet crack can be heard from time to time, followed by a small shower of sparks that rise for a moment before disappearing into the smoky air. Smoke still moves upward toward the beams. It travels slowly, drifting beneath the dark wood before slipping away through small spaces in the thatched roof above. This path has been followed by smoke every day for many years. The beams seem used to it. Their surfaces carry a deep dark color from long seasons of rising smoke and warmth. If someone looked closely, they might see the faint outline of older wood beneath the blackened surface. But time has settled comfortably into the beams. They hold the roof above without movement. Near the hearth, the clay pot has been moved slightly closer to the warmth again. A few pieces of vegetable have been added to the water that remained inside. They float slowly near the surface, turning gently as the heat begins to work through them. Cooking during the day often happens little by little. A few ingredients are added at one time. Later, something else may be placed into the pot as it continues to warm. The wooden spoon returns to the cook's hand. It dips slowly into the pot and stirs the vegetables with calm, steady circles. The motion is simple and familiar. The spoon touches the side of the clay pot with a quiet sound. After a few moments, the spoon rests again beside the hearth, its work finished for now. The smell rising from the pot has changed slightly. It no longer carries only the scent of warm grain. Now the air holds a gentle vegetable smell mixed with wood smoke and the faint herbal scent from the corner of the room. These smells drift slowly through the house. They move across the table and along the bench before fading into the quieter corners near the walls. The table remains empty for now. Morning work in the fields or nearby yards has already begun for many people in the village. The table will see more use later in the day when the next meal is prepared. For the moment, it simply rests in the light. The bench beside the wall has lost its narrow strip of sunlight as the sun shifts outside. The light now falls more strongly across the floor near the doorway. If someone steps inside, their shadow stretches gently across the room. Footsteps leave small marks in the thin layer of straw scattered over the earth floor. The straw moves softly underfoot, making a faint rustling sound before settling again. The broom remains leaning against the wall. Its bundle of twigs spreads outward slightly from long use. When it sweeps across the floor, the sound is quiet but steady. Soon enough, it will be lifted again to brush away the small bits of straw and dust that gather through the day. Near the wall, the sack of grain still rests where it was placed. The cloth surface shows the shape of the grain inside, forming gentle curves along the sides of the sack. Each day the sack grows lighter, though the change is so slow it is almost impossible to notice. Beside it, the bucket of water sits quietly. The surface of the water inside remains still now, reflecting the dim light that enters from the doorway. Occasionally, a small ripple appears when the bucket is touched or moved. The chest along the wall remains closed. The heavy wooden lid keeps its contents safe in the cool darkness inside. Clothing folded within weights for the evening hours or for colder days when thicker garments are needed. Chests like this often travel with families for many years. They hold the small collection of belongings that move with people when life changes or when new homes are built. Above the chest, the dried herbs continue to hang from their string. The leaves have become thin and delicate since they were gathered. Their colors have faded slightly, but their smell still lingers quietly in the room. A few loose leaves may fall to the floor from time to time. They land softly among the straw and remain there until the next sweeping. Above everything, the beams stretch calmly across the ceiling. Daylight reveals the uneven shapes in the wood more clearly now. Each beam carries small marks where tools once shaped it. These marks were made by careful hands many years ago. Yet they remain visible today, quiet reminders of the work that built the house itself. The thatched roof above them continues its quiet work as well. Layer upon layer of straw keeps rain outside and warmth inside. When the wind passes across the roof, the straw moves slightly, creating a soft whispering sound that sometimes reaches the room below. Inside the house, the air remains warm and calm. The fire provides its steady heat. The pot continues its slow cooking. The objects around the room remain where they belong. Everything moves at the same gentle pace. Outside, the village grows busier as the sun climbs higher in the sky. Voices travel faintly through the open doorway, and distant tools strike wood or earth with soft, repeating sounds. But within the walls of the medieval home, the quiet rhythm continues. The hearth glows, the table waits, and the small room holds its steady stillness while the day slowly unfolds around it. The day continues to settle gently over the village. Inside the small house, the air has grown warmer as the fire keeps burning at the center of the room. The thick log in the hearth has slowly collapsed into glowing pieces, and the flames move calmly around them. The clay pot above the fire continues its quiet work. The vegetables inside drift slowly through the warm water. Every so often a soft bubble rises to the surface and disappears. The smell from the pot grows slightly stronger, mixing with the familiar scent of smoke that fills the house. The wooden spoon rests nearby once again. Its surface shines faintly in the firelight. Tools in a medieval home rarely travel far from the hearth, since so much of daily life happens around this warm center of the room. The table nearby remains empty. Light from the doorway now reaches across its surface, showing the small scratches and worn areas in the wood. These marks were left by many years of ordinary work. The table does not change much from day to day. It simply waits for whatever task comes next. The bench against the wall holds a deeper shade now as the sunlight shifts outside. Its wooden surface has cooled slightly where the light once rested earlier in the morning. If someone were to sit there now, they would feel the warmth from the fire reaching them slowly. The stool near the hearth still leans gently to one side. The packed earth floor beneath it has formed a small hollow where the stool's legs have rested through many seasons. The stool fits comfortably there, as if the floor and the stool understand each other. Along the wall, the chest remains closed. The thick boards of wood hold their shape firmly, and the iron hinges on the back remain strong. Inside, the folded clothing and small belongings rest quietly, untouched since the morning. Above the chest, the herbs hanging from their strings sway just slightly as air moves through the doorway. A few dried leaves brush against each other with a faint sound. Their scent remains soft but steady in the room. The sack of grain continues to lean quietly against the wall. Its weight presses gently into the earth floor beneath it, Each time a small portion is taken from the sack, the cloth surface settles into a slightly new shape. But these changes happen slowly. Day by day, the sack grows lighter, though the difference is almost impossible to see at a single glance. Beside it, the bucket of water stands where it was placed earlier. The water inside remains calm and still. The faint reflection of the doorway moves across its surface when someone passes nearby. These small movements are the only changes in an otherwise quiet corner of the room. The broom made of twigs still rests against the wall. Soon enough it will be used again to sweep away the small traces of daily life that gather across the floor. Straw shifts underfoot. Dust settles in quiet corners. The broom patiently waits for its moment. Above the room, the wooden beams remain silent and steady. They carry the roof with calm strength, just as they have done since the house was first built. The beams hold the dark color of many years of smoke rising from the hearth below. In the daylight, their rough surfaces can be seen clearly. Small marks from the tools that shaped them long ago still remain in the wood. Above the beams, the thatched roof rests under the growing brightness of the sky. From time to time, the faint sound of wind brushing across the straw can be heard. The roof answers with a soft rustling that drifts down into the room. These sounds are gentle and familiar. They remind the people inside that the house stands quietly within the larger world around it. The door remains open just enough to allow fresh air to move slowly through the room. Outside, the sounds of the village continue their steady rhythm. Footsteps pass along the dirt path. Distant voices carry briefly through the air before fading again. But inside the house, the quiet remains unchanged. The fire glows with steady warmth. The pot continues its slow cooking. The table, bench, stool, and chest remain in their familiar places. Nothing in the room demands attention. Everything simply exists together in a calm and steady way. This is how the inside of a medieval home often feels during the middle of the day. Not empty, but peaceful. Not silent, but gentle. And as the fire continues its patient burning at the center of the room, the small house holds its quiet rhythm while the long day slowly moves forward. By the middle of the day, the light outside has grown steady and full. Inside the small house, the daylight now enters with more confidence than it did in the early morning. The narrow window and the open doorway allow pale sunlight to stretch farther across the room. The beam of light now reaches the wall opposite the hearth. It reveals small textures in the packed earth floor that were hidden earlier. Tiny marks from footsteps and the faint lines left by sweeping can be seen where the light falls across the ground. The fire in the center of the house continues to burn quietly. The thick log placed earlier has nearly turned into glowing embers. A smaller piece of wood is added carefully, resting across the coals so the flames may slowly grow again. The fire answers with a soft crack. Small tongues of flame rise along the edge of the new wood. They move slowly, without hurry, feeding on the dry grain of the timber. The hearth remains the calm center of the home. Nearly everything that happens inside the house gathers around this small circle of warmth. Above the fire, the clay pot continues its patient cooking. The vegetables inside have softened now. They move gently through the warm water, turning slowly as small bubbles rise along the sides of the pot. The smell drifting from the pot is quiet but comforting. It spreads slowly across the room, mixing with the warm scent of smoke that has settled into the walls over many seasons. The wooden spoon is lifted again. It dips into the pot and stirs the contents in slow circles. The spoon moves with the same familiar rhythm used every day. The clay pot makes a soft sound when the spoon touches its side. After stirring, the spoon returns to its resting place near the hearth. The table nearby still stands empty, though its moment will come again later. The daylight now rests clearly across its surface. The uneven grain of the wood appears almost like a small landscape, with darker lines moving through the pale surface. The marks left by knives and tools tell quiet stories of past meals and simple work. The bench beside the wall remains still. The surface is smooth from years of use. The wood has grown slightly darker where hands and clothing have touched it again and again. Benches in homes like this serve many small purposes. They hold people during meals. They offer rest after long hours of work. Sometimes they become a place where someone sits quietly beside the fire during colder evenings. For now, the bench simply waits. The stool near the hearth remains slightly tilted. Its uneven leg presses into the floor just as it has done every day. Over time, the earth beneath it has formed a shallow hollow that fits the stool perfectly. Small details like this are easy to miss, yet they show how slowly the house and its objects grow familiar with one another. Along the wall, the chest remains closed and quiet. The thick wooden lid rests firmly against the frame. The iron hinges hold it steady, and the wood itself carries the soft marks of many years. Inside, clothing and small belongings remain folded and protected. The chest is not opened often during the middle of the day. It waits patiently until its contents are needed again. Above the chest, the dried herbs continue to hang in their small bundle. The leaves are thin and fragile now, but they still carry their faint scent. The herbs move gently when the air shifts through the doorway. Each small motion causes a soft rustling sound. Near the corner of the room, the sack of grain still leans against the wall. The cloth sack has settled slightly since morning, forming new shapes where the grain inside has shifted. The knot at the top remains tight, keeping the contents safe. Beside it, the wooden bucket of water stands quietly. The surface of the water reflects the light from the doorway. When the air moves gently through the room, the reflection trembles for a moment before becoming still again. These small movements are almost silent, yet they add to the quiet rhythm of the house. The broom remains leaning against the wall, its twigs spreading slightly at the bottom. Later it will sweep the floor again, moving aside straw and dust that slowly gather during the day. For now it rests where it was placed earlier. Above the room, the beams stretch calmly across the ceiling. Daylight now shows their rough surfaces more clearly. Small curves in the wood reveal the shapes of the trees from which they were cut long ago. Tool marks remain visible as well. Each mark tells of careful hands shaping the timber piece by piece. Above the beams, the thatched roof rests beneath the bright sky. Wind moves softly across the straw, creating a faint whisper that sometimes reaches the room below. These sounds are gentle reminders of the world beyond the walls. Through the open doorway, the village continues its quiet activity. Voices pass along the road outside. The distant sound of tools striking wood or earth travels briefly through the air. Yet inside the house the calm remains. The fire glows softly. The pot continues its slow cooking. And the small medieval home holds its steady stillness while the warm light of midday settles gently across the room. The middle of the day moves quietly through the small house. Outside, the sun now stands higher in the sky, and the light entering through the doorway has grown brighter. Inside the room, the brightness spreads slowly across the floor and climbs gently up the opposite wall. The packed earth beneath the light shows faint marks left by many footsteps. Some marks are older and nearly gone, Others are fresh from the morning. The floor remembers each step for a short while before time smooths the surface again. The fire in the hearth burns steadily. The small piece of wood placed earlier has now caught fully, and its edges glow red beneath the flames. The warmth spreads outward once more, filling the room with a calm and steady heat. The fire rarely becomes very large during the day. It simply continues its quiet work, keeping the house warm enough and ready for cooking whenever it is needed. Above the fire, the clay pot remains in place. The vegetables inside have softened further. Their shapes have changed slightly as they turn slowly in the warm liquid. From time to time, a gentle bubble rises, breaking softly on the surface. The smell from the pot is mild but comforting. It drifts through the house in a slow and steady way. The scent mixes with the familiar smoke that lingers in the beams and walls. These smells form part of the house itself. Anyone entering the room would notice them immediately, though those who live here hardly think about them at all. Near the hearth, the wooden spoon has been lifted once again. It moves through the pot with the same patient motion used many times before. The spoon stirs slowly, guiding the vegetables through the warm broth. After a few quiet circles, the spoon rests again beside the hearth. The clay pot remains where it is, continuing its gentle cooking. The table stands nearby, waiting as it always does. At this hour, it may hold small tasks instead of meals. A piece of cloth might be spread across its surface for mending. A simple tool might rest there while someone repairs a handle or tightens a loose piece of wood. Today the table is empty again. The sunlight resting across its surface reveals small scratches and dents left by years of quiet work. Each mark tells of a moment that passed quickly and was forgotten. The bench beside the wall remains still. Its wooden surface carries the faint warmth from the nearby fire. The bench has been used by many people over many years, and its smooth surface shows where hands and clothing have brushed against it again and again. Sometimes a person sits there during the middle of the day to rest briefly before returning to outdoor work. For now, the bench simply waits. The stool near the hearth continues to lean gently to one side. Its shorter leg presses into the shallow hollow in the earth floor. Over time, the floor has shaped itself around the stool, making the slight tilt feel almost natural. This quiet adjustment has taken many seasons to form. Along the wall, the chest remains closed and quiet. Its wooden boards are thick and strong. The iron hinges show a dull shine where they catch the light from the doorway. Inside the chest, clothing rests folded and protected. Most of these garments are worn only when needed, so the chest often remains closed for many hours at a time. Above the chest, the dried herbs sway slightly as air moves through the open doorway. Their leaves brush together softly. The scent they release is faint but steady, adding another small layer to the familiar smell of the room. Near the corner, the sack of grain remains where it has always rested. The cloth surface shows gentle curves where the grain inside settles against the sides. Each day, a small portion is removed, and slowly the sack becomes lighter. But the change happens so gradually that it is almost impossible to notice. Beside it, the wooden bucket holds clear water. Light from the doorway reaches across the surface, forming a soft reflection that trembles slightly when the air shifts. The bucket stands quietly against the wall, waiting for the next moment when water is needed. The broom remains in its place as well. Its bundle of twigs spreads outward slightly from long use. When it sweeps across the floor, it moves straw and dust in slow, quiet strokes. Soon it will be used again, but for now it rests against the wall. Above the room, the wooden beams stretch calmly across the ceiling. The daylight now reveals their rough surfaces in greater detail. Small marks left by tools long ago still remain in the wood. These marks were made when the house was first built. Though many years have passed since then, the beams remain strong and steady. Above them, the thatched roof continues to protect the house from the outside world. The thick layers of straw keep rain away and hold warmth inside. When the wind moves across the roof, a soft whispering sound travels down through the beams. Inside the room, the air remains warm and still. The fire glows quietly. The pot continues its slow cooking. The table, bench, stool, and chest remain in their familiar places. Outside, the village continues its steady work beneath the bright midday sun. But inside the small medieval home, the calm rhythm of daily life continues without hurry, held gently within the quiet walls of the house. As the middle of the day slowly passes, the light inside the house begins to shift again. The sun outside has moved slightly across the sky, and the bright patch of light that once stretched across the floor now rests closer to the doorway. The packed earth where the light once shone returns to a softer shade. Inside the room, the warmth from the fire continues steadily. The flames are smaller now, resting low among the glowing pieces of wood. The fire does not need to burn strongly during this quiet part of the day. The gentle heat it provides is enough to keep the room comfortable. Above the hearth, the clay pot remains in place. The vegetables inside have grown softer and heavier. The liquid in the pot moves slowly, disturbed only when a small bubble rises and disappears. The smell drifting from the pot remains calm and simple. It mixes with the steady scent of smoke that has long settled into the walls and beams of the house. Together they form a smell that belongs only to this place. The wooden spoon rests where it was placed earlier. Its handle leans lightly against the stones of the hearth. Over the years, the spoon has taken on a smooth shine from the many hands that have used it. Nearby, the table stands quietly once more. The bright sunlight that earlier touched its surface has moved away, leaving the wood in a softer light. The small scratches and dents remain visible, though they are less clear now. These marks remain part of the table's story. The bench beside the wall rests in the same quiet position. The warmth from the fire still reaches it gently. If someone were to sit there now, they would feel the steady heat spreading slowly through the room. Benches like this were never made for comfort in the modern sense. Yet they serve their purpose well. The stool near the hearth still leans slightly into the floor. The shallow hollow beneath its legs has grown smooth over time. Each day the stool returns to this same place beside the fire, fitting perfectly into the small space shaped by years of use. Along the wall, the chest remains closed and undisturbed. Its wooden surface carries the soft shine of age. The iron hinges remain firm and quiet. Inside, clothing and small belongings rest patiently in the darkness. The chest waits until evening or cooler hours when its contents may be needed again. Above it, the dried herbs continue to hang from their string. A faint movement of air passes through the room, causing the leaves to sway gently. Their scent remains delicate but constant. Sometimes a small piece of leaf falls quietly to the floor below. Near the corner, the sack of grain continues to rest where it has been placed. The cloth surface has settled slightly again as the grain inside shifts under its own weight. The knot at the top remains tied carefully. Beside it, the wooden bucket still holds water drawn earlier in the day. The water surface remains calm and clear. When light from the doorway touches it, a faint reflection moves slowly across the surface. The broom remains leaning quietly against the wall. It waits patiently for the next time the floor will need sweeping. Dust and small pieces of straw gather slowly during the day, and the broom will return to its gentle work before long. Above everything, the dark wooden beams stretch across the ceiling. The daylight now reaching them is softer than it was earlier. The rough shapes in the wood remain visible, though the shadows between the beams have grown deeper. These beams have held their place for many years. They carry the weight of the roof without movement or sound. Above them, the thatched roof continues its quiet work. The straw rests beneath the open sky, shifting slightly when the wind moves across it. The sound of the straw brushing together drifts faintly into the room below. These quiet sounds belong naturally to a house like this. Through the open doorway, the sounds of the village remain gentle and distant. Voices pass along the road. A cart will turn somewhere beyond the nearby houses. Animals move slowly through the yards and fields. Inside the house, the calm continues. The fire glows softly in the hearth. The pot waits above the coals. The table, bench, stool, and chest remain in their familiar places. Nothing inside the room rushes forward. Everything simply continues in its slow and steady way as the quiet afternoon settles gently around the small medieval home. The afternoon settles slowly over the village. The sun has begun its quiet journey downward, though it still stands high enough to send a steady light across the fields and rooftops. Inside the small medieval house, the brightness has softened slightly. The sunlight entering through the doorway no longer falls directly across the center of the room. Instead, it stretches along the floor near the entrance, forming a long pale shape that slowly shifts as the hours pass. The packed earth floor carries the gentle marks of the day. Footsteps from earlier have pressed the straw into small patterns across the ground. Some pieces of straw lie flat, others stand slightly upright, catching small lines of light where the sun reaches them. The fire in the hearth has quieted again. During the warm part of the afternoon, it does not need to burn strongly. Only a few glowing pieces of wood remain in the center of the hearth, covered partly by pale ash. Even so, the fire has not disappeared. A faint warmth still spreads through the room from the glowing embers. The hearth remains the quiet heart of the house, even when the flames grow small. Above the coals, the clay pot rests where it has been all day. The vegetables inside have continued their slow cooking. The liquid moves only occasionally now, disturbed by a quiet bubble rising from the bottom. The smell drifting from the pot is gentle and familiar. It mixes with the steady scent of smoke that lingers in the walls and beams. Over the years, the house has absorbed these smells until they feel like a natural part of the building itself. The wooden spoon rests beside the hearth. Its handle points toward the pot, as though waiting for the next moment it will be lifted again. The spoon has become smooth from years of use, its wood polished by countless meals prepared in this same place. Nearby, the table stands in calm silence. Afternoon light touches one corner of its surface, leaving the rest in soft shade. The grain of the wood appears darker where the sunlight does not reach. The table has seen many small tasks throughout the day. Bread sliced in the morning, bowls resting briefly during the meal, perhaps a tool placed there for a moment before being carried outside again. Now it waits quietly for the evening meal that will arrive later. The bench along the wall remains still. The warmth from the hearth reaches it faintly. Its wooden surface carries a smooth shine from years of use. If someone were to sit there now, they might rest for a short moment after work in the fields. But for now, the bench is empty. The stool near the hearth continues its familiar lean. The The shallow hollow beneath its legs has grown firm from long use. Each day the stool returns to the same place, fitting easily into the shape the floor has formed for it. These small adjustments between furniture and floor happen slowly over many seasons. Along the wall, the wooden chest remains closed. Its surface carries small scratches and marks from years of handling. The iron hinges remain dark but strong, holding the lid in place. Inside the chest, folded clothing rests quietly. These garments wait for cooler hours when the air grows colder or when evening work brings people back inside. Above the chest, the bundle of dried herbs still hangs from its string. The leaves have become thin and brittle, though their faint scent continues to drift through the air. When a breeze enters through the doorway, the herbs sway gently. Their soft rustling sound is barely noticeable. Near the corner of the room, the sack of grain leans quietly against the wall. The cloth surface shows small changes where grain has been taken earlier in the day. The knot at the top remains tied carefully. Beside it, the wooden bucket stands with its water still and clear. A small reflection from the doorway touches the water's surface. The reflection moves slowly when someone passes near the bucket, then becomes calm again. The broom remains resting against the wall. Its twigs spread slightly outward from years of sweeping the floor. Soon it will return to its quiet work, brushing aside dust and straw that gather slowly through the day. Above the room, the beams stretch calmly across the ceiling. The afternoon light reveals their shapes in a softer way than the bright midday sun. Shadows rest between the beams, deepening the quiet feeling of the room. The beams remain strong and unmoving. Above them, the thatched roof rests beneath the open sky. The thick straw layers hold their shape carefully. When the wind moves across the roof, a faint whisper passes through the straw and drifts down toward the room below. These sounds blend easily with the quiet life of the house. Through the open doorway, the village continues its steady movement. Distant voices travel along the road. Somewhere a cart moves slowly across the dirt path. The sounds reach the house only faintly before fading again. Inside, the calm remains unchanged. The embers glow softly in the hearth. The pot waits above them, and the small medieval home holds its quiet afternoon stillness while the long day gently continues. The afternoon moves forward in its slow and patient way. Inside the small house, the light continues to change almost without notice. The bright shape near the doorway has shifted again, stretching slightly farther along the floor as the sun lowers outside. The packed earth carries the soft glow of the afternoon sun. Straw scattered across the ground catches the light in small golden lines. Each piece of straw rests where it was last pushed by a footstep or by the broom earlier in the day. The fire in the hearth remains quiet. Only a few embers glow beneath a thin layer of ash. From time to time, one of the coals brightens for a moment, showing a deep red color before fading again. The warmth from the hearth is gentle now. It spreads slowly through the room but does not fill it with strong heat. During the afternoon, this calm warmth is enough. Above the hearth, the clay pot still waits in its place. The vegetables inside have finished most of their cooking. The liquid moves only rarely now. The pot rests above the embers as if sharing in the quiet of the room. The smell drifting from the pot has become softer. It blends with the familiar scent of wood smoke that has long settled into the walls, beams, and roof. The air inside the house feels warm and slightly earthy. Near the hearth, the wooden spoon remains where it was last placed. The spoon has become darkened slightly from years of use near the fire. Its surface feels smooth and worn, shaped gently by many hands that have stirred countless meals. The table nearby stands quietly once more. The sunlight now touches only a narrow corner of its surface. Most of the wood rests in shadow. The small marks on the table are harder to see in this softer light, though they remain there just the same. Tables like this rarely stand unused for long. Soon it will hold bowls and bread again when evening arrives. For now it simply waits. The bench along the wall has grown slightly cooler as the sunlight moves away. The wood still carries a faint warmth from the hearth. Its smooth surface reflects the long years of quiet use by the people who have rested there. Sometimes during the afternoon someone might sit on the bench for a short while, stretching tired legs after work outside. At this moment, the bench remains empty. The stool near the hearth continues to lean slightly to one side. Its shorter leg presses gently into the small hollow in the earth floor. The floor and the stool seem to understand each other after so many years. Each day, the stool returns to the same place beside the fire. Along the wall, the chest rests closed and still. Its wooden surface shows small scratches left by hands and tools long ago. The iron hinges remain firm and dark. Inside the chest, clothing rests folded and protected. These garments wait quietly for the cooler hours that will come later when the sun begins to fade. Above the chest, the dried herbs continue to hang in their bundle. The leaves have become delicate and thin. When a faint breeze passes through the doorway, the herbs sway slightly. Their scent drifts slowly through the room, mixing with the smoke and the gentle smell of cooked vegetables. Near the corner of the house, the sack of grain remains steady against the wall. Its cloth surface shows gentle curves where the grain presses from inside. The sack grows lighter day by day, though the change is slow and easy to miss. Beside it, the wooden bucket still holds water drawn earlier in the day. The surface of the water is calm. A pale reflection from the doorway moves across it whenever the light shifts or someone passes nearby. The bucket remains ready for whatever task will come next. The broom still leans quietly against the wall. Its twigs spread outward in a wide shape from many years of sweeping. The broom will soon return to its gentle work when the floor gathers dust and loose straw again. For now it rests patiently. Above everything, the wooden beams stretch across the ceiling in calm silence. The afternoon light reveals their rough shapes in a soft way. Shadows rest between the beams, deep and quiet. These beams have watched many afternoons pass just like this one. They hold the roof without movement. Above them, the thatched roof rests beneath the slowly changing sky. The thick straw shifts slightly when the wind moves across it. The sound of the straw brushing together is faint but familiar. It drifts softly down into the room below. Through the open doorway, the village continues its quiet afternoon life. Distant voices rise and fade along the road. Somewhere a tool strikes wood with a slow, repeating sound. Yet inside the house the calm remains steady. The embers glow quietly in the hearth. The pot rests above them. The table, bench, stool, and chest remain where they have always been. Nothing inside the room feels hurried. Everything continues in its slow and steady rhythm as the peaceful afternoon gently moves toward evening. The afternoon continues to drift quietly toward evening. Inside the small house, the light has softened even more. The sun outside has moved lower in the sky, and the brightness entering through the doorway has grown warmer in color. The patch of sunlight near the entrance now stretches across a narrow strip of the floor. The packed earth holds the light gently. Straw scattered across the ground catches the glow in thin golden lines before the brightness slowly fades into the shaded parts of the room. The fire in the hearth remains calm. The embers beneath the ash still glow softly. A small piece of wood has been placed near the coals, though it has not fully caught fire yet. Thin smoke rises slowly as the wood begins to warm. The hearth continues to breathe a gentle warmth into the room. Above the fire, the clay pot still rests where it has remained throughout the day. The vegetables inside have grown tender after many hours of quiet cooking. The liquid in the pot moves only rarely now, disturbed by an occasional bubble rising from the bottom. The smell drifting from the pot is soft and comforting. It mixes easily with the steady scent of smoke that has settled into the wood of the house over many years. The wooden spoon remains beside the hearth. Its handle rests against the stone edge, waiting for the next time it will be lifted to stir the pot again. The spoon carries the quiet history of many meals prepared in this same place. Nearby, the table stands in the fading afternoon light. Only a small part of its surface still holds the warm glow from the doorway. The rest of the wood lies in gentle shadow. The marks across the table remain where they have always been. Each small scratch and dent is a quiet memory of past work. The bench along the wall sits calmly in the dimmer light. The warmth from the hearth still reaches it faintly. The wood has grown smooth from years of use, shaped slowly by the many people who have rested there. If someone were to sit on the bench now, they might pause for a moment before beginning the evening tasks. But for now, the bench waits in silence. The stool near the hearth continues its familiar lean. The shallow hollow in the earth floor fits its legs comfortably. Over many seasons, the stool has returned to this same spot beside the fire. The floor remembers where it belongs. Along the wall, the chest remains closed. The wood of the chest reflects a soft shine where the light from the doorway touches it briefly. The iron hinges hold steady, just as they have done for many years. Inside the chest, folded clothing rests quietly. These garments will likely be taken out later when the evening cool begins to settle over the village. Above the chest, the bundle of dried herbs continues to hang gently. A faint breeze moves through the doorway and causes the herbs to sway slightly. Their delicate leaves brush together with a soft sound. The scent from the herbs drifts slowly through the air. Near the corner of the room, the sack of grain remains where it has always been. The cloth sack leans quietly against the wall. Its shape has changed slightly where grain was taken earlier, though the difference is subtle. Beside it, the wooden bucket still holds clear water. The surface of the water reflects the fading light from the doorway. When the air shifts gently, a small ripple moves across the surface before becoming still again. The broom remains leaning against the wall. Soon it will be lifted again to sweep the floor before the evening meal begins. Small pieces of straw and dust have gathered through the day. The broom waits patiently for that quiet task. Above the room, the wooden beams stretch across the ceiling in calm silence. The afternoon light now reaches them only faintly. Shadows have grown deeper between the beams as the sun lowers outside. These beams have watched countless evenings arrive in this same slow way. Above them, the thatched roof rests beneath the cooling sky. A faint movement of wind passes across the straw, creating a soft rustling sound that drifts down into the room. Through the doorway, the sounds of the village begin to change. The busy noises of the afternoon grow quieter. Footsteps return along the road as people slowly make their way home. Inside the house, the calm remains steady. The embers glow softly in the hearth. The pot rests above them, and the small medieval home waits quietly as the warm afternoon slowly gives way to the gentle arrival of evening.